All right, hour number 2 here on a Tuesday. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. We're out here at the Quickfill at 5466 Camp Road in Hamburg for Operation Give Thanks, which is Quickfill's annual event to raise funds for veterans in need. It's in its 4th year of existence. They've raised almost $750,000 for vets in need. So if you're in the area, stop by, check out some of the vet merch they got here, and make a donation. But we begin the second hour, as we typically do on Tuesdays, with ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky, whose appearances on One Bills Live are presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. Well, Dan, last Sunday was a stinker for the Bills. Get shut out in the first half for the first time in 36 games. Really can't get it in gear at all on offense. And it seems to be a prevailing theme in each of the 3 losses for the Bills this season. They don't match the energy and juice of the opponent, and they turn the football over multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is before X's and O's, it was just flat. There was just absolutely no juice. And, candidly, it's surprising. I'm not going to use the word concerning because that's out of respect, that a team in Miami that for years has been one that anybody that was, a football analyst or just fan would sit there and go, this group's not physical enough. They're cool at times to watch and fun, but they're not physical enough on either side of the football to truly matter. To get out physicaled, out toughed, out hit by that team when they really don't have a ton to play for, that was surprising. That would have my attention if I was, in Buffalo. And so the flat element of it, it's a big deal. And then obviously the X's and O's and the execution and the way it played out, it's a telltale sign to when this offense doesn't run the football. It really doesn't have a lot of rhythm right now. The run game breeds rhythm for them. The drop back pass game leads a lot to be desired. I would sit there and tell you from an execution standpoint, also from a schematic standpoint, their pass game at times, Kincaid goes out, it feels like with no Palmer, it's, okay, they got to get to the play action stuff, but really there's only 2 play action concepts they kind of run. So there's not a ton attached to that as well. And so, it's, I think that forces frustration from Josh, and it forces him to play far too fast. So there's a lot in that game that you could walk away and say they got to clean up quick.
Yeah, and let's talk about the X's and O's. What's this offense lacking? I mean, certainly Bills fans have been clamoring for a big number 1 wide receiver, and of course, if you get a big number 1 guy like that, he's a great player, and great players make you better, right? Is that a concerning need?
Well, it's not happening now.
Is that a front?
Yeah.
Is that a front priority for you? Because they're not getting one now, like Brownie says, but is that going to haunt them the rest of this season, or is there ways that they can still run this offense and be effective like they were in the first half?
I mean, it could haunt them. There's the truth, and I know Kincaid's going to be out for a stretch of time now. At least I thought Shefty said that yesterday with the hamstring. So I think every week we've talked about the importance of Kincaid. And so no Kincaid's a big deal. This isn't a small injury. They run their pass game through him. Shakir's not the guy that's going to win down the field. And Palmer's up and down health, and then Keon's up and down performance. Yeah, there's a huge concern right now that they're just not going to be good enough and healthy enough on the perimeter. And so there's this variance. Sometimes in offensive football, Steve, this, like there's a variance of what we can get to and all the different ways we can play, styles that we can play. With no Kincaid, with the Palmer up and down health, and the reality of where they are, there's just not a big variance for this football team offensively this year. They have to be able to control the line of scrimmage in their run game. They have to stay ahead of chains and be unbelievably efficient on third down. They're going to have to resemble a lot of what the Chiefs were last year offensively. The quarterback has to be very clean. He's got to be very clean on a situational operation, on a play-by-play basis operation. I think that's where Josh is lacking right now, because with no Dalton and the up and down of the perimeter, there's not a ton of explosiveness. And so if you're not going to have the opportunity to make big plays in shorter drives, then you have to be crazy disciplined and efficient in those drives. And right now, that's something that they're not doing on a consistent basis. So what's needed? I would tell you what's needed is they have to dominate in the run game, have to. And then the quarterback has to be obsessed with efficiency.
And then I was just trying to think, because without anybody getting added at the deadline, you're essentially relying on the brain power and creativity of Joe Brady, Aaron Cromer, and the other offensive staff to devise ways to make it not appear like such a heavy lift in the passing game. What are your thoughts about possibly reintroducing the backs into the passing game? This was a trio of backs last year that caught 70 passes, 8 for touchdowns. Maybe in games where the run game hits the skids a little bit, could you use that as a potential extension to the run game?
There's no doubt about it. I think last year as well, I mean, you know this too, Chris, like this offense was so rhythmic last year and so consistently dominant that they were calling plays. I mean, I would love to know, and I haven't searched it, like how many plays they're averaging per game in this really stretch of month that they haven't necessarily played great outside of Kansas City in comparison to last year. Because, right now it feels like the playbook has shrunk. It feels like the amount of times they can get to different things has been shrunk, it's always the fine line of, are we trying to do too much rather than are we leaning into the things that we're great at, and so, the question is, well, okay, let's get James involved in the pass game, but then the devil's advocate would say, why not just turn around and hand the ball off to him as well? I mean, if we have a very good offensive line and we've got these tight end groupings that are good and a fullback that's a good player, we can equally say, let's hand the ball off and try to, be very efficient and somewhat dominant the line of scrimmage in the run game. And so I was thinking about this morning because, and I know Cromer comes from the Rams, and with the way the Rams play, I think that there's a lot that can be learned from that. They've got 2 elite receivers. I don't want to take that away from it, but what happened was when Puka went out for an injury, and Devontae was still kind of okay this year, this offense for a stretch had to figure out in LA what were they going to get to. And what they've done is a little bit, I think, what Buffalo should entertain is, one, they're wildly efficient in the run game. They have the least amount of negative plays in the NFL by a far margin. They're not overly complicated in that. And then 2, they bootleg Matthew Stafford a ton in their pass game. And they run a bunch of different stuff out of it. I think that's something with where this offense is right now, that's something worthy to entertain more of. Getting more of the bootleg game for Josh out there. It'll free some people up. It'll give you some easier completions. It gives you the chance for some chunks. It gets an athlete on space, because I think they're searching right now in their pass game what to get to.
When the Bills come out on defense on Sunday, this last Sunday against Miami, and they've got like 9 guys hurt. Joey Bosa's out there with a club on his hand. Christian Benford's out. Taron Johnson's out. Ed Oliver's out. All these guys. They still hold the Dolphins to 16 points through 3 quarters, and that game is really in doubt all the way up until they snap off 2 big runs at the end. What is your thought about the Bills' defense, what they're doing well, what they need to do more of? And obviously get healthy is probably at the top of everybody's list. But they are seemingly, particularly with Max Hairston's emergence and Cole Bishop playing with a lot of confidence right at the moment, they're way more athletic than they have been in the back end. What else do you see from this defense that really for 3 quarters this last week gave their team a chance to win?
Yeah, and even in that 16 points, it's a double move touchdown bomb that, it's probably the first time Hairston's seen that. I think everyone, really on Monday morning TV, and I'm a part of that at times, was, somewhat critical or overly critical, I thought, of the defense. I thought the defense was okay. This is a dynamic offense that you're playing against when they're in rhythm, and specifically at home. I would tell you, I think a couple of things, Steve, where one, I do think Hairston had a little bit of a an eye-opening experience. It's his first time going against a guy like that, and so he got beat at times more than he had previously. And so good learning experience for him of how to play and whatnot. Still able to track a football and get another pick. So again, that's a good thing. Even the long run by Achane that really starts to break the lead. They're in the hole to make the tackle. And I think it's Lewis just misses the tackle, and then all of a sudden it's 60-yarder away. So, like, they've got a body there. They just got to, make that. Now, there's Taron Johnson, and I don't want to, but does he make that tackle? All that stuff. So that, and then the last run is just a little bit of a desperation, play by that defense. And so I think even to this point, like Miami came out with 6 offensive linemen, multiple snaps, and Buffalo stayed in nickel. I think that just speaks to health. I don't really think that schematically you're sitting there going, yeah, I can't wait for this, nickel that gives up 130 pounds to this offensive lineman to have to take on outside zone against them. I don't really believe that's the case. It's just a health thing. So I think that with where Buffalo is right now, I'm so much more focused on this offense and how to build consistency in this offense and really where and who are going to be the answers. I think the defense is going to be okay. They got to get healthy. It's also going to be about matchups. Who are they going to play when it matters? They're going to match up well against other teams, and they're going to match up at a disadvantage versus some others. But for me, it's this defense is going to have to get healthy, but I think they're going to be okay. It's really on the offense right now.
Last one from me, Dan. Tampa on deck next here. They lost a close one to the Patriots at home. They now have to come up here to Buffalo this weekend. They're still trying to get guys healthy, too. Doesn't look like Irving's going to play. He remains out. Same thing with Godwin. Ibuka has been a revelation as a rookie, obviously, and they still have Rashad White in the backfield. Maybe just give us your thoughts on, Baker, who obviously started off hot this season. Has he carried that through to this point? Has he regressed a bit? Where would you say their offensive operation is at right now?
Yeah, so obviously some of the health people that you mentioned are a big deal. Ibuka is outstanding. He is great in space. He's phenomenal at the point. He's strong. He's a savvy route runner. And so whoever gets matched up on him in those situations, if it's Hairston, this will be another big-time test. They want to push the ball downfield. They're a very aggressive early down play action passing team to try to hit the middle of the field. Tej Johnson is a big part of their offense as well. I think the second thing is, and this will go as just as much as slowing down that pass game, is this defense has just struggled with misdirection this year. They're one of the best counter run games in the NFL. Get you flow one way, bring it back to the other way. They'll get it to multiple ways, sometimes with tight ends, sometimes with backs, sometimes with receivers as the lead people. And so that'll be a huge thing, having to stop. Baker's legs have been a massive story for them in clutch moments. So this is still a very viable offensive unit. And then defensively, they're phenomenal against the run. Vita's very good. Pressures are going to be absolutely outrageous. They're doing stuff in their secondary. I really haven't seen teams do a ton this year when it comes to their coverages and rotations. They got a young corner that's playing at a high level, Morrison. So I think Tampa's a very, very, very good team. They're not in that probably top 4 of the NFC anymore right now, but they are no question one of the 5 or 6 best NFC football teams. Absolutely. It's a good challenge for Buffalo.
Yeah, and it does seem like two teams with identical records coming in. Both, although the Tampa Bay is leading their division after both coming off tough losses. This is one of those games where you're kind of in the meat of the season here, right? You're playing an unfamiliar opponent, out of conference, out of division, but you still think, man, you got to win these games to keep pace.
Oh, there's no question. In the AFC, too. I mean, we were looking at it today because with the news of the potential Joe Burrow coming back, Buffalo, I think, is sitting at that 5 spot right now, but then maybe the 6 spot. But, Jacksonville's up and down. Kansas City can beat anybody. Houston defensively is sensational. Baltimore, I'm telling everybody, they're getting in the way their defense is playing. Their offense hasn't even played good, and they've scored 30 the past 2 weeks. And so if you're Buffalo, it's still very much so of, hey, there are 3 or 4 teams that are right on our heels that are not that far off. And I can make the claim that Houston has a unit that's playing better than either side with Buffalo. Baltimore has a unit that's playing better than either side with Buffalo. And so those two teams would have my attention. So yeah, these games are a big deal.
Yeah, and they've got Houston next week on the road on a short week, Thursday night football. So they got to get this one and then hope for the best on the road.
Absolutely,
I know.
Off the charts.
It was the same problem last year. They went down there in week 5 and lost on a 60-yard field goal at the end of the game. They didn't have Shakir in that game, but still in all, I mean, that defense, especially at home, that Houston, oh my God, they are tough. So yeah, that might be their toughest game this season, being that it's on the road and on a short week with that defense. So thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
Happy Veterans Day, guys. Thanks.